99.9 Punk World Radio FM, Elite Wrestle Talk. This is episode 38, and we're joined by a prodigy within the wrestling industry. This man grew up in wrestling. He lived it. He breathed it. Now he's doing it. We have Neal Koloff right here, live on the air. Neal, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, you're most certainly welcome. Thank you so much for a bit of your time. I know you're super busy. I know when we spoke, you were talking about actually coaching wrestling as well. So, I mean, you're definitely a busy guy in the wrestling business.
Well, I used to coach, but what I'm doing is I officiate high school and college wrestling. And so a lot of stuff will come up to where I'm like doing a tournament or I'm doing a match. So I was very fortunate that, especially this past weekend, I had a big tournament where I had to do 8 matches within the day, which equals out to 112 like individual matches I had to do. So it was a very busy Saturday for me, very busy weekend, but I'm fortunate to where I was like, yeah, I need a day off, especially for today. So that's why I was like, hey, this is perfect to do this today. Thank you again for having me, and thank you for fitting me in. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're most certainly welcome. And just when it comes to high school wrestling, I wish we had that down here in Canada, but I don't think any. I know in Ontario, at least down here, we don't have any high school wrestling teams, man. So
Wow.
it's definitely an American thing.
Yeah, that's very surprising. That's very surprising they don't have that up there.
I think our school system, dude, just doesn't really want to kind of deal with that. If that makes sense, I don't think they would know what
Yeah.
to do if that wrestling match turned into a real, actual like full on like MMA fight. I don't know if they would be able to handle that.
What's crazy is this past Saturday, we had 2 teams, and one of them, I don't know if you're familiar with the pro wrestler Chase Emery.
I've
Um,
heard of them, yeah.
so he lives in North Carolina, the state next to me, and he was an assistant coach for one of the teams that made it to the finals, and he had to leave because he had a show that he had to go to, and then I had to tell him, I was like, dude, man, your team was about to brawl with the other team, like right after you left, like. Did you tell them to do something while I was still there? Like, what's going on here, brother? So,
But taking you back way before you were an officiant for wrestling and all that stuff, I want to take you back to the very early 2000s when you debuted in professional wrestling, where you actually were trained by Brody Chase. I was
yeah.
wondering, how did yourself and Brody actually get connected, and of course, what was it like just learning from him at the very beginning stages of your professional wrestling career?
So Brody and I knew each other back when I was a sophomore in high school. My father and I, we went to a show. There's a guy here in Greenville that runs Borderlands comic book store, and he stop, guys. He also runs the South Carolina Comic Con every year in April. It gets about 40 to 50,000 fans in there. I mean, it's huge. Every year he does it, he surpasses the next. He does a very good job with it. His name's Rob Young, and so Rob actually. Every time my father and I would go in there, he was a big wrestling fan, still is, and he had contacted my dad and said, "Hey, look, I'm starting to get serious about wanting to get involved with a show around here." And then we walked in there. He had the poster of the show, which was Brody's show. And he asked my father, because my father used to be an EMT before he got into coaching and teaching. He was an EMT and a fireman here in Greenville. And so when he asked my father, hey, would you mind coming and kind of being like an EMT for the wrestlers if they have an injury or whatever you can have? So my dad was like, yeah, absolutely, no problem. And it was at the old Greenville Civic Center, which was actually a bingo hall. And but the ceilings were like, very low. So jumping off the top rope probably was not a good idea to do. And so once we went in there, that's when we met Brody for the first time. I met Rick Michaels, which, if you don't know that name, he was the man who trained the phenomenal AJ Styles. There was a guy, Casey Thunder, out of Asheville. Many guys who, some of them still wrestle today, some of them don't. But that's how we got to meet Brody. And then right after I wrestled in high school, won state. My senior year, I wrestled in college for a year and a half. And once I got out, I then ended up seeing Brody at the gym, and he was just asking me how things were going. I went to one of the shows that he did, and then that's when he says, "Hey, come on by." Brody had other ulterior motives, going on in his mind. And once I went over there to uh, work out with him, is how he put it. He asked me, "Hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this?" And when I could do it, that's when he like brought me in his office, and that's when he said, "Hey man, I gotta have you wrestle. I gotta have you wrestle." And at first I was like, NCAA eligibility. I didn't know what I was gonna do, but then when I decided I needed to take some time off, well, that time off from amateur wrestling ended up being all the way until now. And so it's been a lifelong journey with that. But Brody, learning from him, he was one of those guys. If you're familiar with Brody, Brody was an underneath guy. Most people like to use the term jobbers, but he was an underneath guy for Crockett, and he was an underneath guy for in WCW. He did some stuff with the WWFE, during those times. But Brody was very good at psychology and knowing how to place things in the ring. So as a trainer, like he was top notch above a lot of people in the industry. Most of them are just like, you come in and then they're like, "Hey, let me teach you this move. Let me teach you that move." Brody wasn't like that. Brody was one of those to where he had training literally almost, I want to say, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. Excuse me. And Brody was one of those to where one day you're actually going to be in the classroom, which is he's got the tapes right there, but he had a whiteboard, and he had like literally different scenarios of matches that were going on. We would watch tapes of some of the big time matches that he would record, whether it's ECW, WCW, WWF, or we would watch some of the matches and kind of go over and be like, "Well, what did you do wrong here? What did you do wrong here? Like, let's figure this out, and let's work together on this." So Brody was a very, very good teacher. He was and he also trained Michael Judas, man known as Frank, who's in NWA right now. Also Xavier Woods, who
A
was
crazy train as well.
yeah, Crazy Train. So he helped a lot of guys. Scotty Wren, who's Jason Justice. A lot of the guys that you saw on Wildside Television, they came from Brody. So
And it's crazy though too when you actually mentioned the word jobber not too long ago. Like that's one thing. Even just me as a professional wrestling fan, I hate using the word jobber because I find it's kind of like in a way like disrespectful. I always like saying enhancement talent because essentially they're enhancing the other talent. They're putting the other talent over. I mean, the word jobber to me is just like, ugh. You know what I mean? It's just like you don't do that,
sure,
man. Because at the end of the day, they're
sure.
still wrestlers. They still get in that ring and put their life and their career on the line every time they step through those ropes. So, I mean,
Hmm.
enhancement talent is my opinion, is the best way to actually put it.
Absolutely. And where the term jobber came from was more or less these guys are coming to do a job, for the major stars. And believe it or not, like back in the Crockett days when the big stars would show up to TV, like they're not getting paid for that. The only guys that are being paid are the enhancement underneath guys, jobbers, whatever. Those are the only guys that are getting paid to work that day, and the referees, obviously. But if you're one of the stars, like that is your time to shine on television. And so, and that's your way to, as a salesman, at that point, to sell your product to have people come that are wanting to buy tickets to come and see you. So it was a very good atmosphere and a very good what opportunity, rather, for not just the underneath guys, but also for the stars that were coming in to do like a lot of the matches there.
And also in 2002, you actually wrestled for the National Wrestling Alliance Wildside out in Georgia. I was wondering if you can
Mhm.
actually tell us a bit more about working for the NWA. And of course, how did you actually get connected with Bill Behrens originally?
Old Bill Behrens. I love Bill. He's a great human being. I got connected with him through a tag team that worked Wildside called Future Shock. I was very, very close with Jay Freeze and Brandon Phoenix, who at the time was going by Brandon P because they had John Phoenix that was wrestling for Wildside at the time. But Wildside had Friday night shows, and they called it their Friday night franchise. And at that time, it was their opportunity to get to look at new talent coming in to where they could see, like, okay, maybe we can use this guy in this angle, maybe we can use this guy maybe in this character. But Bill was very smart with that, as was Rick Michaels, because it was both Rick and Bill together on that. And then Rick would end up getting a job with WWE making gear. And Rick's a phenomenal gear maker at that. But Bill, like when he went in there, it was around the time WCW had closed, but NWA Wildside served as the developmental territory for WCW. And so a lot of the guys that went through there, like Romeo Bliss, Rage, Chaos, David Flair, um, anybody that was an developmental talent for WCW, Elix Skipper, like I mean, you name it, these guys were a part of it. So it was really cool to be able to go there and to see those opportunities and to be able to see even AJ in his earlier days before he made it big when it went to TNA. Bill was right there. Bill was a vice president with the NWA and then later became the president of the NWA. So we were very fortunate. It was myself, the ones that got in, it was myself, Michael Judas, who went by Michael Adrian at the time, and a guy, his tag team partner at the time was Vincent I. Payne, who they went by the Elite Swingers. But it was all of us that were actually, we were known as the Carolina Boys. And we would go there and we would a lot of times ride with Scotty Ram, but a lot of times we would ride with Future Shock. And once we went in there, like we were able to establish very quickly on the Friday night shows, because there's some guys that went in there just to try out that never left the Friday night shows. So if they liked you and they wanted to bring you to television, then they would come to you and say, all right, starting next month, like you're going to be on television. And it was just a very good opportunity for us to go in there. So Bill's one of the biggest masterminds behind that. He's a fabulous, fabulous mind for the business. He's been around it for God knows how long. I know he worked with the Jarretts before TNA. Um, and not only that, but with WCW and even WWE when they went to Deep South through the early parts. So Bill is very, very knowledgeable when it comes to wrestling. I can't say enough good things about Bill Behrens.
And during your time with NWA Anarchy, you actually joined an amazing faction called NWA Elite alongside many other phenomenal professional wrestlers. I was wondering if you can actually
Mhm.
just tell us the backstory on NWA Elite and, of course, as being a part of that phenomenal stable.
So the NWA Elite actually started in Wildside. Jeff G. Bailey, who he's just a brilliant mind too for the business. And most people don't really realize that, like, the names that came through Wildside and Anarchy. Like, I mean, you got Jeff G. Bailey, you got Al Getz, who he was a former manager of mine, and I believe they just inducted him this year, I believe, this year or last year, into the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame up there in Waterloo, Iowa. He was a brilliant mind for the business. Like I said, Rick Michaels, uh, Dan Wilson, who he was the ring announcer for Wildside, and then he later ended up going into the group the Devil's Rejects. So many brilliant minds for that. Todd Sexton, that's another one. He was trained by Shawn Michaels when Shawn Michaels had the Wrestling Academy out there in San Antonio, Texas. Before Rudy Gonzalez took it over, he actually went to the school, with Sean, while Sean was doing it, and he would tell the trainers like Rudy and a lot of others, "Hey, teach him this, teach him this." So Todd is a brilliant mind for the wrestling business as well. And again, that group of people that made Wildside and Anarchy I can't say enough good things about him. But what brought me into the NWA Elite, I became the NWA World Television Champion. And when I lost it to Hayden Young, who I don't know if you're familiar with that name, he just recently got engaged to Lillian Garcia. So it's
Yep,
like,
I saw that.
yeah, so it's like this little circle of people. So I put him over for the world television title. Um, right after that, we were getting ready to start like this big angle. Well, then they had decided for me to become the heavyweight champion. They wanted to put me with the NWA Elite, which was an honor because, like, I mean, I always admired Jeff's work and I've always admired him as a person. And so, and he and I got along tremendously. There was one time where he just looked at me in the group, was like, "Why are you with me? You talk so good, and I don't know why that's happening. Don't get me wrong, I love managing you, but I just don't know why." So that was just one of those things that we did. But the thing with the NWA Elite was one of the most enjoyable times was the feud that we had with the Devil's Rejects because there were so many memorable matches that we had with them, whether it was the 8-man tags or even just regular tag matches or singles matches we would have on television that later culminated into the Anarchy Rules match we had where the fans bring the weapons. Which, funny story about that one, this lady, and we would have fans that would bring the weapons. Now, granted, we would choose which ones we're going to use. I'm not going to use a lawnmower blade, in one of the matches, but somebody brought literally an old dryer, clothes dryer that they never used anymore. Somebody brought that. We used it naturally. Somebody brought an old charcoal grill that we obviously used. Multiple things, but somehow, some way, a lady's bra got put into the trash can that we were going to use. And I remember I was doing something with Iceberg, and then all of a sudden Iceberg goes, he started mumbling, get that bra," and I was like, what are you talking about? And then he just said, "Get that bra," and I just looked down. Sure enough, this lady's bra is just sitting right there. So I pick it up, and the second I hold it up like this, just looking at it, that lady's in the front row over there screaming, just like, yeah, 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 yeah. And so I was like, well, how am I going to do this? And sure enough, I took it and I started choking Iceberg with it. The lady later asked if she got the bra back somehow. I don't know how she got her bra back, but she got it somehow. And she asked myself and Iceberg I signed the right breast, and Iceberg signed the left breast that we used it. And it was just, I guess it was memorable for her. But just that particular match was fun. And then culminating into war games that we had at the old Georgia Mountain Center. Many classic matches happened in that building. Crockett would run there, WCW would run there, and we had a lot of people show up for that. So that was a good culmination. But to your question with how I got into the NWA Elite, it's one of those to where somebody said, "Hey, let's put Jeff in the NWA Elite," and Bailey was all for it. So yeah, and Bailey got to pick and choose. That's the one thing I will say. Bailey got to pick and choose who came in that group and who didn't. So if Bailey put you in there, then you were over with him.
And when you actually said a few moments ago about fans bringing their own weapons, a lot of great matches happen that way, But
Mhm.
obviously, you pick and choose which ones you want to use. What is the most craziest, excuse my language, shit that you've seen these fans bring? Like ones where you're like, I'm not even going near this person. Like, what's the most intense things you've saw?
The lawnmower blade was one of them. Um, there was one fan that had like the cactus jack, which I mean later is now being used by John Moxley, but at the time it was literally the nails on the board. And I'm not gonna lie, both Iceberg and Tank, they were both like, that might be good, that might be good. But then we looked at it And that's when we were like, no, there ain't no way. There ain't no way. And you might need like you know you get cut with that thing, like you need like a bunch of tetanus shots. You might lose your arm. So there was that. I'd have to say like that tops it off was the board with the actual nails like sticking out in it and the lawnmower blades. The lawnmower blades was just one of the that were used, by the way. They weren't new. They had been used. And it's like, what do you want us to do with these? So those were the craziest that I was a part of.
As a fan, if I ever got to go to one of those matches, I would actually bring a kitchen sink. That way, I would set the announcers up
Yeah,
to be like, "We have everything here, including the kitchen sink,"
yeah,
just to set them
exactly.
up for that line, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the thing is like you never really see that, and then when you do, it's just like they literally brought the kitchen sink. It's great. It's a great thing.
And you were also an NWA Anarchy Heavyweight Champion, man, which is one of the most prestigious heavyweight championship belts to ever hold in professional wrestling because it's the National
Hmm.
Wrestling Alliance. What was it
Hmm.
like just being a face of that company for that time holding the belt, man? Because so many people held the NWA Heavyweight Championship throughout the years.
A true honor. It was a true honor because I go back to a lot of the guys that held that particular title. What people don't really realize is the wild side and the anarchy titles, they coincided. And so when I look at it, to be in the same class as a Abyss, who um, oh man, now I'm trying to remember what his name was before he was Abyss. Um,
I remember what was he? He was like some manager in TNA, wasn't he as well? Like he came in
he
with a
was
suit
it
and
was
everything.
it was Joseph
Yeah,
Park, but he was something else before he became Abyss. He was another name, and for the life of me, I cannot think of it. It'll come to me here after a while, but we'll say Abyss. Um, Abyss. And then seeing AJ Styles, Ron Killings, my lord, you name it, they were the champions. It was just a true honor to be, chosen for that particular spot, and many thanks go to Bill Behrens for that. Many thanks go to Jeff G. Bailey for that. Um, those that really fought for me, Al Getz, those that really fought for me to get that championship. Like it was a true honor, and to be able to face some of the best that the industry has seen, probably hasn't seen ever. But it's just the matches that I would have with Slim J on top of it all was a true treat for me.
and one of the last questions I have about the National Wrestling Alliance before we move on to other stuff, but obviously as we know, 2025 NWA is currently doing NWA Power. They're keeping the vibe, in my opinion, alive. What's your
Mhm.
take on the Billy Corgan era of NWA National Wrestling Alliance and of course NWA Power?
I'm all for anyone reviving the NWA. I grew up on the NWA. Around here, Jim Crockett Promotions. Every Monday night there at the Greenville Memorial Auditorium, which was quoted the house that Flair built. Um, I would be up there watching, everybody from Dusty Rhodes to Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, Art Anderson, the Four Horsemen, to my uncles Ivan and Nikita. I would see them, and just many others that I've come in contact with over the years, like Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, Manny Fernandez, Jimmy Valiant, many of them that I grew up watching, like I'm now sharing a locker room with, and it's a true treat to be able to be associated with that. And when I saw that Billy was taking it out of the territories and bringing it to one mainstream, like I do like that, but I do wish that like for that particular one that's the main show, but that he goes back to like saying having another Anarchy or Wild Side, or having another NWA Florida, which it looks like he's branching out and doing something like that. So if that's the case, I'm very happy to see that that's taking place, because all it does is just help the sport and the business of professional wrestling.
I 100% agree. I watch it every week. NWA Power. I just love the vibe of it. I love the smaller venue, studio tape vibe. But the my only complaint is when he has like the Crockett Cup and these big events, he doesn't televise them. There's no way to watch them. I remember he did the Crockett Cup in Philadelphia, and I was so pumped about wanting to watch it. I dug through the net trying to find, like, I was gonna pay. I didn't even care. I was like, just take my money.
Yeah,
But he
yeah.
did not go live. I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, you would make so much money if you just sell this for like $10 on a streaming site.
Yeah, and when you think about it, like what happened back in '83 and '84 with the Crockett's, like, I mean, the only way to see it is if you went to what was it, closed circuit. The same way with WrestleMania. It was before pay-per-view came along. So I'm not sure why that's the case, but hopefully it improves over time.
I agree. And Billy,
Maybe if I get in there, I'll throw in a couple of words to him. Hopefully.
I highly doubt Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins and NWA is going to watch this interview. I mean, if you do, and you listen to this part, televise the pay-per-views or televise the potential pay-per-views. That could be potential pay-per-view. Get that
One thing
money.
I've learned one thing I've learned in the business, never say never.
That is true. I 100% agree. Same with you. You got the opportunity to grow up and watch people like Flair, Tully Blanchard, Harley Race, and then of course, Rock and Roll Express, and then share a locker room with them, man. Even
Oh
Rock
yeah.
and Roll Express, it's crazy to see those guys still going today. Like Ricky Morton at 69 years old. I just hope I
Mhm.
can move like that at 69. I'm in my mid 30s, my back already hurts, so I don't know.
He the one thing about Ricky Morton is I've gotten to know him and Robert over the years. Um, Robert wished my son a happy birthday. And just seeing that, and him and Ricky were the first two wrestlers that I ever met when I was my son's age. And so, and my son just turned 7. And so, knowing them as long as I have, and being able to have that, that's a true treat. But like, one thing that tells you how close Punky and I are, Ricky, I crank called him when I was doing morning radio, and I did something, and I'll tell the story here in just a minute, but he ended up getting me back on a rib. And then when he told it recently, or well, maybe last year, I want to say, on Talk is Jericho, and then I sent him a message. I was like, man, thank you, thank you for you putting me over on there. And he was just like, oh, anytime, baby, anytime. And I love Ricky Morton and Robert. Robert's one of my favorite people.
And when it comes to Ricky Morton as well, man, I actually worked an event. I started working with GP Productions. Jack Kilby, shout out to him. I started working with him for the past couple of years. I was in Philly in May, got to be at the ECW arena and work the event backstage and do
Oh,
videography.
cool.
And I met Ricky. And then fast forward, that was May, and then fast forward to just earlier on this month, I was in Ithaca, New York. He was at the event working it. He walked right up to me, shook my hand, and was like, "I remember you. You're that DJ guy from Philly, right, baby?" And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, the fuck? Like, you remember me? Because I wasn't expecting it. Like, I was just that guy in the back filming. So I was like, yeah. So we chatted
Oh,
up, and he's like, good to see you again. And I was like, damn, that's cool. That
yeah,
was
yeah.
hard not to mark out on that one. That was hard.
Ricky can have those moments on that. Like, and I'm not gonna lie, when him and Robert got inducted in the Hall of Fame, I shed a couple of tears because I was that happy for them.
And going back to that rib, I have to ask, man, what was the rib that you did on radio, and how did he get you back? Like, I need the details on this.
So so Ricky had told me a lot of times, like, he would show up at shows, and I would see him showing up at, like, with these junk cars. And this is like, this was after Wild Side and Anarchy, and I would go to a lot of the shows like NWA Mid Atlantic. Um, and we would go to these shows, and Ricky would show up in these junk cars. Don't know how it made it, to the next town. But what Ricky told me was, he goes, yeah. He goes, what I do, he goes, I take it and I go to the car, I go to the town. If it breaks down, I just take the tag off of it, go to a buy here, pay cash, and then I go off to the next one. Put the tag on it, and I go off to the next one. And then I'm like, okay. Well, so that sparked the idea to where I could crank call him, because I was on 90, excuse me, I was on 93.3, the Planet's Rise Guys morning show, for about 10 and a half years. And so I told the guys, I was like, I'm gonna crank call somebody. Yeah, I used to crank call my grandfather, for God's sakes, on the radio. He was 91, and he never knew for daggum 12 years that I was crank calling him. Never knew. And before he died at 91, I played a clip for him, and he was just like, "Oh, that was you the whole time." So that was a fun moment that my grandfather and I shared. But yeah, I called him and I said that I was a mechanic around, and I just named a town. And I said, I'm a mechanic around here, and I got this car that's registered in your name. It's in your name, sir. And he goes, well, which one was it? And I said it was and I just guessed. I was like, it was a Buick, and nice interior, and it was doing all right, but it was hard. And he goes, oh, was it that blue one? And I was like, yes, it was. And he goes, oh man, I love that car. Where did you find it at? Where's this? What's this? And then I just told him, I was like, well, a buddy of mine gave it to me. I ran the VIN number, and it came up with you. So I felt like, and I knew a buddy of mine that could give me your number. So I decided to give you a call. And then I said, so I just wonder, I got the car fixed. So how you going to take care of me? And then he was like, well, what are you talking about? And then I was like, I mean, look, I fixed this car for you, man. So how are you going to take care of me? He goes, buddy, I got 7 kids to feed. And I said, well, I got 7 dogs, and puppy chow ain't cheap. And then he had mentioned something else. And I think I told him, I said, listen, don't be a cheap bitch. Just sit there and pay me my money. And then he just like, I remember the final straw for him was when I said, don't be a cheap bitch. And then that's when he just goes, you know what? You can go to hell, because I don't want to deal with jack offs like you. And he hangs up. And then he goes to a show, I want to say about 30 minutes from here, from where I live, which is still the listening area. And some people came up, and they were just like, oh man, I heard you the other morning on the Rise Guys. That was funny as crap. And then he was like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, when Jeff prank called you on the radio. That was great. And he goes, prank call me how? And then they said, oh, it was talking about a car that you did. And then that's when it signaled. So then Ricky goes, oh, okay. So then I want to say it was like 2.5 weeks later, we were going to be at the same show together. Well, a couple of my friends that were already there, I was running behind going to the show, and they said, hey, for some reason, Ricky Morton's looking for you. He keeps asking for you if you're here. And then I was like, all right, well, tell him I'll be there in a minute. So he, so then all of a sudden I'm walking in the door. He's right there at the door. And he goes, hey, Jeff, how are you? And then I'm like, I'm fine. I'm doing okay. Then all of a sudden, I'm sitting over on the side. I'm next to Chris Hamrick. I'm next to Richie Steamboat, Ricky's son. And then all of a sudden, these cops come up. Here's my son. Come here, everybody. Get a cameo on the radio. How you doing? This
Hey,
is
buddy.
Lucas Neal. I'm just telling wrestling
Nice to meet you,
stories,
Lucas.
bud.
Hey, what's up? You cannot get back in.
I won't get back in. Hey, we have a movie theater time here, so we were just watching the cartoon Grinch. So,
Can't go wrong with
but
that.
no, absolutely not, absolutely not. My son loves the 4DX movies. By the way, if you never experienced a 4DX movie, please go see it. So, but then I go in, and all of a sudden, as I'm sitting next to Chris Hamrick and Richie Steamboat, these 4 cops come in, and they say, Jeff Lewis Neal here? And I was like, yeah. And then they start telling me, like, oh, do you know this person? Do you know this person? And I was like, well, yeah, I know him. Like, everybody in here knows him. And then it was like, oh, what's that supposed to mean? And then the one cop was great. Academy Award. He deserved it. The other 3, They couldn't keep a straight face if their life depended on it. They were like, yeah, just try not to laugh. But this one guy, like, he was serious. And then he got on the phone. He was like, "Yeah, I think I got him. I think I got him." And then he whispers in my ear, like, "You're a effing piece of crap. Da 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 da. Da. Get your effing A up so I can put you in effing cuffs." And then I'm like, what is this? So then, trying to say that there was a girl that made pictures for a lot of the guys. Well, Ricky had tried to say that, oh, me and this person had a relationship going on, and when she was underage, which wasn't the case. And so, on either spectrum. So then when that happened, like, the guy's like saying, get up so I can put you in cuffs. And then I'm like, what in the world? And then when that happened, that's when Ricky comes up. He goes, "Officer, I want to say something." The cop's like, "Sir, stay back, stay back." And he goes, "Jeff, you need to get yourself a good lawyer or don't be effing with me." And the whole room just popped at that point. And I was like, "Man, thank you. Very good." And so at that point, like, he had told me one rib that he did on Dusty where he had the cops actually come in and put the cuffs on him, put him in the car, and then they drove around the building and then come back. And then next thing you know, the boys are right there just laughing. But Dusty's like crying, and he's like, what's going on here? You know, so
I'm just a son of
just
a
stories like
plumber.
that. Yeah, really. Just thought of a plumber, baby. I didn't do anything.
That's crazy though. So does Rick? I'm guessing Ricky knows like these police officers. I'm assuming, because you can't just call the police station and be like, "Hey, can you help me with a rib?"
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you
Well,
could. I don't know.
the show was a benefit for the police department, so it made
Oh,
sense for
fair
the
enough.
cops to be there.
Fair
So
enough.
it
Yeah.
made sense for the cops to be there for that. So the fun times,
And
fun times.
and also jumping over to 2007, man, where you actually wrestled Kevin Thorne on WWE's reincarnation of ECW. If if
Yeah.
you want to call it ECW, but for
Oh
the
yeah.
sake of it, it's ECW on Sci-Fi. So I was
Yeah.
wondering if you can actually just tell us the story behind this opportunity, and of course, what was it like just working with Kevin Thorne in the squared circle?
So it was one of the multiple times that I actually got into the ring at WWE. My first time was in 2004, 3 or 4, where I was protecting Dwayne the Rock Johnson from Goldberg. You could tell how that went. And a lot of those guys that were in that particular skit, one of them was Jesse from Biscuits and Gravy. Ray Gordy, who was in that spot with us, Todd Sexton, Rick Michaels. Um, Gosh, who else? Corey Chavis, who he was I want to say, a multiple time NWA World Tag Team Champion. He went as Rain Man for many years. Um, but how I got it was it was myself, Brody Chase, who got booked, Judas, Gunner was booked with us, and Kirby and TJ Mack. I don't know if those names ring a bell, but all of us were booked, and they saw all of us work. They saw all of us in the ring on how we could sell and how we could bump. And it was actually the recommendation of Jamie Noble of seeing me work, and he went to Dean Malenko, and he said, out of all the guys, I feel this one right here can get Kevin over the best. And that once that happened, it was off to the races. And that's how I got selected. And I did the match with him. As soon as we got to the back, I got hit with Gerald Briscoe, like, congratulating me, Pat Patterson congratulating me. All of a sudden, I get a meeting with John Laurinaitis saying, "Come back here, let's talk." Very positively, him and Tommy Dreamer, to where the next night we were booked for Charleston, and that's when I imitated Shawn Michaels on Monday Night Raw, and I received a WWE tryout that night, right after that. And but a multitude of them were like telling me, like, well, what's going to happen, like, if you get signed today? And I'm like, huh. So it was one of those things where it was a surreal moment. And it was one of those moments also to where um a good a good time in my life happened because when I had that match, it was actually on my birthday. And I told John Laurinaitis that, and he goes, "To be honest with you, I've never heard of anybody getting a tryout on their birthday. You might be the first in WWE history." And then I was like, okay. But what was cool about it was the next day after I imitated Shawn Michaels, I'm in the back, which I was in Shawn's actual gear, by the way, which was a true treat. I'm back there, and we're standing there. I'm getting ready to give the stuff back to the seamstresses, and then all of a sudden Vince is walking around the corner. Vince McMahon. He's walking around the corner, and everybody's obviously getting out of his way. He's busy. He's a busy man, and all of a sudden he comes right up to me. He doesn't go to anybody else. He goes right to me. He goes, "I enjoyed last night's match, and I enjoyed tonight. Thank you so very much." And shook my hand, and then I was like, "No, thank you," and then goes back and walks right back the way he came. So he made it a point to come out of Gorilla to come and find me. Which at that point I was like, "Yeah, there ain't no way. I'm getting a job. There ain't no way about it." They sent me to OVW where I was working with Al Snow, and had a great tryout. And they brought me back several times since then. It's one of those things where you never know what they're thinking. But it was a great time. It was a great time, and I'm very blessed to have the opportunities that I've had with them. If I have more, then awesome. If not, hey, it is what it is. It was a great time in my career.
At any time, did they actually offer you a contract or draft something up or anything like that? Was there ever talks of you actually having an official either main roster? There was no NXT then, obviously, so main roster
Right.
contract.
There were talks of a possible contract. I know that Al wanted to sign me. I know that just because he told me to my face that when I was at OVW. Um, but at the same time, he just said, "You never know what they're thinking." He goes, they may send somebody that has the body of a Greek god, and they can't work a lick to save their life, but they'll sign them. And it's like you may have somebody with your ability that can work and has like everything going for them, and they just won't sign them. He goes, so you never know what they're thinking. But I do know that having the conversation with Al, he wanted to. Him and Danny Davis wanted to. But at the same time, again, it's one of those deals to where it's like, hey, you never know what they're thinking upstairs.
And you actually had one other match in the World Wrestling Entertainment where you actually lost a dark match against Charlie Haas in
Yeah.
2018. But moving forward to March 30th, of 2013, you wrestled Charlie again, but this time it was in Ring of Honor Wrestling where you ultimately got the win. I was wondering if you can actually
Yeah.
tell us a bit more about not only working with Charlie Haas, but of course working in a Ring of Honor Wrestling.
I still suffer from broken, well, shouldn't say suffer from broken ribs, because the ribs are healed. But occasionally I'll feel some stuff within my left ribs from wrestling Charlie at WWE. Uh, Charlie's one of those guys. He's a man's man. That's the one thing I'll say. He's one of those guys. He lays it in. That's all I'll say. He lays it in. And so when Charlie went out there, like, I mean, we're having a good match in Raleigh, and they announced me from Raleigh, and I had like over 18,000 people cheering for me. I'm like, "Oh, I can get used to this." That's right. Me too, buddy. And so once we did that, I go and I take a German suplex from him, and I'm over in the ropes waiting for him to come and get me to choke me, eye gouge me, what we talked about. And he comes up and gives me a 50-yard field goal kick right to my ribs. And I'm just like, okay, that broke something. I ended up breaking two and cracking one. And yeah, it was awful. But then
Holy
going
cow.
in, yeah, and it's still a good match. I mean, he felt bad about it afterwards, but once we went to Ring of Honor, that night was crazy because Charlie was supposed to go over, And there was, I don't know if you heard about the infamous fight he had in the back with Grizzly Redwood.
I heard about
Uh,
that.
it,
Yeah.
that was that night, and so um, it was one of those things where we talked about the match and talked about it with Delirious, and everything was a okay. And Charlie ended up he had the cowboy hat. He was going by the Hoss hole gimmick is what he was going by. And he goes out there, and him and Grizzly were kind of like, going back and forth with each other on things. Hey, buddy, I'm doing an interview right now. So it's time to steal Christmas. So my son's the Grinch now. Oh, but he was in the back, and they were getting they were kind of doing jabs at each other back and forth, innocent jabs. Well, as Charlie is talking to Hunter, Delirious, about the match, all of a sudden, like Grizzly goes up and knocks Charlie's cowboy hat off his head, and then Charlie at first was like, "Ha ha, funny, funny." Well, then Grizzly all of a sudden stomps on it and then kicks it across the room. Oh, naturally, that made Charlie mad, and all of a sudden, Charlie, who was already upset at that point. Once he saw that, he goes, "Okay." He goes, "Jeff, I'll be right back." And I was like, "Okay, buddy. Okay." So then after that moment, I'm over there just kind of going over things in my head about the match. But then I look at Steve Carino, who's a very dear friend of mine. And I go to Steve and I said, "Steve, we might want to watch out over here." And he's like, "Why?" And I said, in the words of Kevin Hart, "It's about to go down." And so I sit there and I watch it. Charlie grabs his hat, he pops it back up, puts it back on his head. He walks over to Grizzly and he says, "Listen, I don't know what I did to you." He goes, "But I don't destroy your personal property. Why are you doing that to mine?" And simple question. Grizzly Grizzly could have said, "Hey, listen, I was just messing around. I apologize. I'll buy you a new one." Hold on, buddy. Hold on, buddy. I'll buy you a new one. I'll do this. I'll do that. Well, then next thing you know, Grizzly instead, he just goes, "Well, F you. What you gonna do about it?" While he's sitting in the seat. Now, Charlie, I don't know if you've ever met Charlie. Charlie's like 6'2" and
I
and
haven't, but he is a
solid
big boy.
and solid. Grizzly was all of 5'6", maybe at that. And Grizzly's sitting down while he's saying that to Charlie. And then Charlie just all of a sudden can't believe he says that. And then Charlie just turns and then just backhands him. And then when that happened, Grizzly tried to stand up. Charlie shoved him. When he shoved him, he then tries to shoot a double leg on Charlie, which was hilarious just because you're trying to shoot a double leg on a 4-time All-American wrestler. Stop, And then Charlie stopped with his hand, said, "Are you effing kidding me?" And then kicked him right in the face. And when that happened, that's when Hunter and a couple other Ring of Honor people came around and started surrounding Charlie, which probably wasn't a good idea. And that's when Charlie goes, "You know what? F you, F you, F you, and F you. Tonight, I'm done. I'm going out there. I'm putting Jeff over, and you'll never see me again." That's when I looked at Steve and BJ Whitmer, and I was just like, "Let's get him now." And then that's when we got him, and then we got him back. And then I said, "Charlie, come on, let's just relax." And then Charlie looked at me. He goes, "Jeff, I'm putting you over tonight." I said, "No, Charlie, let's just stick to the plan. Let's do that." He goes, "No, F that. We're doing this." And then I was like, "Whatever you want, Charlie." Whatever you want. But Charlie just he knew exactly what he wanted. And again, he's just a man's man. I apologize. I'm
He
getting my
pulled
charger. I just saw that my phone was like at 10%. So I'm just trying to get
he
my
pulled
charger
that
here.
that half baked scenario. I don't remember if you've seen that movie, but the guy quits his job. He's like, "F you, F you, F you. You're cool. F you. I'm out."
Yes, he did. And that's the thing with Charlie is Charlie, when Charlie wanted to, he could really hurt somebody if he wanted to. And that was the thing with Charlie that I just said, like, "Charlie, hey buddy, let me sit down right there." Charlie was one of those guys that if he didn't like you, like, you're gonna know it. You're gonna know it. If he liked you, you're gonna know it, and he's gonna do whatever he's got to do to make sure that that you are taken care of by him. And that was just something with Charlie. We went out there, and at first, Ring of Honor wasn't gonna allow the match to happen just because of the fight that happened. But then I told him, I convinced them. I said, "Listen, let's have this match. He's not going to hurt me." Because one of the things that got me real close with Charlie was when he was talking with Kevin Kelly, and Kevin Kelly even told him, he goes, "It's not that we don't trust you. It's just, given that you're upset, we're concerned for your opponent's safety." And I overheard this, and then that's when Charlie looked and he goes, "He's my friend. Why would I hurt my friend?" Now, keep in mind, years earlier he broke my ribs, but at the same time, I understand that he even said, he goes, "He's my friend. Why would I hurt my friend?" And then that's when he turned to look at me. He goes, "Jeff, are you scared to wrestle me right now?" I was like, "No, no, I'm not," because I knew what Charlie was capable of. If Charlie wanted to hurt me, he could hurt me as well as anybody in that locker room. And the guys that were, by the way, in that locker room, both Briscoe brothers, Steve Carino, you got Kevin Owens, who was in that locker room as well, and Mike Mondo, among others that were in that locker room. But the thing is, even Shelton was telling me, because I've gotten real close with Shelton Benjamin over the years, is Shelton was like, "You could have cleared that whole locker room, and not one of them could hold a candle to Charlie Haas." And he's right. He's 100% right.
And one of the last questions I do have for you tonight, there, Neal. That way you can get back to some of the 4K Christmas movies. But I noticed on your Facebook, man, that today you announced via social media that the Koloff Family Reunion Wrestling Tour. I was wondering if you could
Yeah.
actually tell us a bit more about this up and coming tour, and of course, what cities are currently booked and locked in that you can announce tonight here on the radio.
So I have been talking with a promoter in New York who he runs a New Breed Entertainment, Leon, who Leon's a tremendous human being. He booked Nikita and I for WrestleCade this past November in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which, if you've never been to WrestleCade, it's a tremendous event to go to in Winston-Salem. Many legends, many stars go to it. Tracy Hawks, or Tracy Myers and Brian Hawks that run it are great human beings, and they do a tremendous job every year of running that. It started out just one day, and now it's literally like 3 days. So they've built it into a huge convention that a lot of the boys, a lot of the wrestlers look forward to every year. But when I was speaking with Leon, Leon came up with the idea of the Koloff family reunion and asked if I could get some people on board, because myself and Nikita, we were there at WrestleCade, and then we ran into Vladimir, who was there, and we started talking, and then Nikita and I, like, we were able to, get Vladimir over there to where we could actually talk to him, see how he was. But I'm very close also with Renee Koloff, Ivan's widow. And once the idea was presented to me, I immediately contacted Nikita, I contacted Renee, and then I contacted Vladimir and just said, "Here's the idea. Are you guys interested?" Within seconds, within seconds, all three were all for it. And so it was a tremendous opportunity to where we could get it going, to where, since Ivan just was inducted this year into the WWE Hall of Fame, and obviously Nikita, who should be in the WWE Hall of Fame, my opinion, but he should be in there hopefully soon, knocking on wood right there. Vladimir, who came along in the late 80s, early 90s. He worked in the early ECW days as well as Smoky Mountain with Cornette, and even overseas in Japan and Puerto Rico. Very well rounded individual. So to get us all in there, it's a once in a lifetime kind of thing that we have going. And right now, what we're what we're looking at is March 21st at the big event in New York that's coming up. And then April 18th and 19th at WrestleCon in Las Vegas, the week of WrestleMania. So right now, that's on the books right now, even as early as these announcements. So those are right now where you can see us, and we're looking at others to where we can do it. So if anybody is interested in having the Koloff family reunion with the Hall of Fame ring and even the WWF title that Renee takes with her to places. More than welcome. We'd love to be in the places and come see the family reunion.
Sounds like the Koloff family reunion tour is the place to be.
Absolutely, absolutely, anywhere.
But I gotta say, before we actually part ways here tonight, man, I gotta say first and foremost, thank you so much for a bit of your time. But with that being said, because I do know we might have promoters that are watching this. We might have and you never know who could tune into an interview. So with that being said,
sure,
how can we, by individuals, reach out to you about potentially getting yourself and the rest of the family on their next wrestling show? Obviously, if the price is right. But remember, yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah, you can reach me on Facebook.com/Neal Koloff. You can reach me on Instagram at Neal Koloff. That's NEAL, by the way. And you can also reach me on X, which is at Jeff Lewis Neal, which is the radio name / shoot name, if you want to call it that. But it's under Neal Koloff. If you search Neal Koloff, it'll be on there.
And I gotta say again, Neal, thank you so much for giving not only myself, but the radio station Airwaves a bit of your time out of your busy evening, especially during the holiday season, man. It gets hectic. So thank you so much, man. And also, thank you for years of entertainment in the ring for us crazy fans, man. I mean, some people might not realize it, but every time you step in that squared circle, whether it's a 1-minute match or a 20-minute match, you're putting your life and career on the line every single time. So with that being said, thank you so much, man, for years of entertainment, and thank you in advance for so many more, man. Super stoked to see what comes next from the man himself, Neal Koloff.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and thanks to fans up there in Canada, and hopefully we'll get up there to Canada to see some of you guys up there. Hopefully, if there's some conventions up there, we'll get up there too.
Hopefully, I darn sure hope so, because Canada needs legends like yourself down here. We get some, but since COVID, we don't really have a lot of big conventions nowadays, man. So hopefully, this conversation maybe can spark one up.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you once again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you're most certainly welcome, Neal. Have yourself a great night, and of course, happy holidays to you and your family as well. I'm pretty sure we definitely shall talk again soon, but for now, have yourself a phenomenal night.
Absolutely, and Merry Christmas to you and your family as well.
Thank you so much, man.